What's going on? My name is Mike Jimenez, and this is the Alamo City Sportscast coming at you from San Antonio, Texas. It is Wednesday, December 6th. Hope everyone's having a good day. Broadcasting live right now on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. But subscribe to our YouTube channel there, the Alamo City Sportscast. Subscribe. We have more than 600 subscribers. Again, we have a fun time here. We talk about sports. We talk about things that are pop culture in nature. Lots to get into today. Joe Garcia typically produces this show, but he has taken the past few weeks off because of a work commitment that he has. So I'm doing this from home as opposed to our studio. Chat lines are open. Chris Gonzalez asking the question, did Jimenez get it working today? I did get it working today because it looks like Joe did it for me. I just had to press play and get going. So, yeah, we're going. David Atwater has already reached out saying, let's go. Let's talk about some things today. You know, I'm big into betting. I love talking sports. I love betting on spreads, betting on futures. Probably made a big mistake when it came to betting $200 at the Spurs get at least 30 wins, but that's neither here nor there. But if you're into betting right now, the favorite to win the NFL MVP might be surprising to you. We're going to get into that in a moment. Spurs back on the road. 14-game losing streak. Will it be 15? When will this streak finally end? And the Time Magazine named its Person of the Year. And let's just say I agree with the selection. So let's get into that. If you want to be part of the show, again, you can be part of our chat line over here and just throw out a topic or throw out a comment. Be happy to read them out. But let's get into this a little bit because, you know, like I said, I'm a betting guy and I like talking about sports betting. And I was taking a look at the race for MVP. And there's been a groundswell of support for a certain player that plays for the Dallas Cowboys, and that person is Dak Prescott. So I went online this morning and I was taking a look at all of the different sites. So there's a website called VegasInsider.com. And it basically says this is what FanDuel thinks. This is what Caesars thinks, MGM Grand, DraftKings, and whatnot. And as I'm taking a look at it right now, it is basically a three-way tie for favorite to win the MVP. And Dak Prescott is among the favorites. In fact, if you take a look at FanDuel, he is tied as the favorite with Brock Purdy at 3-1 odds. If you take a look at Caesars Palace, he's tied with Brock Purdy at 3-1 odds. And if you go to DraftKings, though, DraftKings has Brock Purdy up, but some of them, Purdy's a little bit better odds than Dak. Others are saying, no, Dak is the favorite. And right there, along keeping pace with him, is Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. And number 4 right now, it's 7-1 odds, Patrick Mahomes. So my question for you, do you really believe that Dak Prescott is having an MVP caliber season? Now, Dak Prescott is somebody who has improved since last year. I mean, last year he led the league in interceptions. And this year he has cleaned it up. In fact, if you go back, this year he only has 6 interceptions on the season as opposed to 26 touchdowns. So a little bit more than a 4-1 ratio when it comes to touchdowns to interceptions. On top of that, he's leading a team that could be the number 1 overall seed as of this weekend, because if the Cowboys beat the Eagles, they tie the Eagles atop the NFC East. And on top of that, they might be the number 1 seed going into the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So I have said this before. If the Cowboys win the division, Dak Prescott is most definitely an MVP candidate. But if the Eagles run away with it, if the Eagles win this division by 1 or 2 games, chances are Dak Prescott's not going to be the MVP. Because if you go back the last 15 years, only once has the MVP played for a team that didn't win its own division. And typically, it is a quarterback that wins this. Now, I will say this for Dak, though. Dak does not have a teammate that is going to pry away votes from him, because it's very possible that that could happen, because Dak Prescott is not going to have Tony Pollard take his votes. He's not going to have CeeDee Lamb take his votes. But Brock Purdy might have Christian McCaffrey take votes away from him. And that's an issue when it comes to that. So maybe, just maybe, We should believe in all this. Maybe, just maybe, Dak should be considered to be that guy. Jalen Hurts was the favorite coming into last week. They finally lost a game at home to the Niners. They got destroyed by the Niners. But when it came down to it all, if you saw at the end of the game, Jalen Hurts got nicked up a little bit. And if Hurts actually does play hurt, that might actually impact the MVP race. And sitting back, though, after losing to the Packers, you've got the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And if Mahomes could turn it up the last month of the season, he might be back into contention again to win the MVP award. But right now, Dak Prescott, considered to be the favorite to win the NFL MVP. And right now, Micah Parsons is considered to be second right now when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year. Again, he has won second place back-to-back years. At some point, you would think that Micah Parsons and his brilliance would win that particular award, but it hasn't happened yet. Tim Gonzalez reaches out on our YouTube stream and says, "What's good, Mike?" What's going on, Tim? Hey, if you guys have any topics you want to talk about today, be more than happy to discuss. Looking at the NFL right now, though, the Houston Texans right now, they are my Sancha team. They are my Sancha team. It's typically the Bengals because the Bengals have Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and they went to LSU. My daughter goes to LSU. Daughter graduates next week, by the way, so I'm excited about that. But I have always said that we are allowed one Sancha team. It's just a team that we can cheer for. That is not our normal favorite team. And the rules are cannot be in your division and preferably not in your own conference, right? So if my favorite team is the Saints, and they suck this year. One game out of the playoffs, by the way, but they suck this year. So I have to have a Sancha team. And really the team that I've been latched onto has been the Houston Texans, man. The stand that they had on Sunday afternoon to win that game shows so much growth. And DeMeco Ryans, as head coach, should be considered to be the favorite for Coach of the Year. He should be. Who in their wildest dreams thought that the Houston Texans would be a playoff contending team this year? And you add the fact that Trevor Lawrence got hurt last weekend, and if there's no Trevor Lawrence and the Texans are just one game behind at 7-5, just one game behind, who's to say that they can't overtake the Jacksonville Jaguars? The idea of the Texans going from the second worst team in the NFL last season to being a division-winning team and hosting a playoff game this year is remarkable. Remarkable. And as Chris Gonzalez reaches out and says, Trevor might be done, Joey B is out, it is possible. And that's the thing. That is the thing. You take a look at what's going on in Houston. This is a team that, as a 7-5 record right now, could have won 2 additional games and been 9-3. Also could have lost 2 additional games and been 5-7. But they did that stand. That was the second time they've done that in about a month or so, where they do these stands defensively to get that last stop at the end. And my goodness, man, it is so much fun to watch that team. And I know a lot of fans of the Houston Texans. I have several of them that are close to me. And right now, they're so excited. Again, right now, Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC South at 8-4, but no Trevor Lawrence. Indianapolis Colts and the Texans sitting there at 7-5. If the season ended today with 5 games to go, if the season had ended today, the Texans would be on the outside looking in, because right now they are 7-5, but considered to be the 8 team in the playoff seedings right now. But look at it this way: the number 5 team, Pittsburgh Steelers, have the exact same record as the Houston Texans. So Pittsburgh 7-5, Cleveland 7-5, Indy 7-5, Houston 7-5, and just behind them, you've got Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. You've got the Bengals. You've got the Broncos, all at 6-6. It is going to be a dogfight down the stretch. I think that if the Texans win 3 of the last 5 games and finish the season 10-7, that they'll actually make the playoffs. 10-7 should do it. 10-7 might actually win the division. But let's take a look at who they've got right now. This weekend, Texans got on the road against the New York Jets. That should be a win, man. That should be a win. after that big game against the Texans, the Titans on the road. Then they've got the Browns at home on Christmas Eve. On New Year's Eve, home against the Tennessee Titans, and then end the season at the Indianapolis Colts, which could be a game to determine not only a playoff berth, but it could determine who wins the AFC South. David Atwater reaches out to us and says he's a Dallas Cowboys fan, but my Sancha team is the Houston Texans. Let's all get on the bandwagon, baby. Let's all get on the bandwagon. And he goes on to say that D'Amico is a defensive stud, and that's why they got him, right? That's why they got him. CJ Stroud should be the rookie of the year. I agree with you, David, man. That is by far the most definitive award that we have going on right now in the NFL. It's going to be CJ Stroud getting that offensive rookie of the year award. The guy's a stud. And think about how the Houston Texans backed into him, because the Houston Texans were poised to have the number 1 overall pick until getting a last-second win at the end of the season last year, which bumped them back down to number 2. And had they gotten the pick at number 1, they would have gotten Bryce Young. And Bryce Young had so many red flags. And I know a lot of people reach out to me and say, well, Michael, it's because Carolina sucks, and it's because Carolina doesn't have the weapons and doesn't have this, that, and the other. But do the Texans really? I mean, the Texans have come around, and I know they got Devin Singletary and they got Dalton Schultz in offseason, and that's some veteran presence there. But none of them are stars. Who would have thought that Tank Dell, who went down with an injury, was going to be a star this early? The Texans are doing something very, very magical, and we don't see it very often in sports. We oftentimes see worst to first in the NFL, but this is different, man, because this is not only going worst to first, but this is also doing it with a brand new head coach, with a brand new offensive coordinator, with with a rookie quarterback. There's so much going on here that's so special, and if the Houston Texans can manage to make their way in to the playoffs, do you think that maybe they could beat the Steelers in the first round of the playoffs? I think they can. I think they can beat a lot of teams in the first round of the playoffs. You win the division, you host a game, and that is so cool. It is so cool to watch D'Amico Ryans. I love the fact that he's a young African-American coach, because I think the NFL has been shying away from them. For a while there, it was like Mike Tomlin, and there was several of these older African-American coaches that were getting hired, but now we're seeing a young generation of coaches, and D'Amico Ryans is doing so well out there for the Houston Texans. Texans, again, get the Jets tonight. And if you saw that story, the Jets were talking about making a change at quarterback this upcoming week, and Zach Wilson reportedly said that he wasn't interested. He reportedly said that he is not really excited about going back after that job was taken away from him. And now we're seeing Aaron Rodgers practicing for some reason. You know, it's just so crazy what's going on with Aaron Rodgers and his injury. And that was supposed to sideline him for like 8 months to a year. And all of a sudden, 2 months later, he's out there doing his thing and practicing, hoping to make it into the end of the season for some unknown reason, but interesting nonetheless. San Antonio Spurs, 14 in a row that they've lost, but they're back in action tonight. 12.5-point underdogs to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The T-Wolves coming in at 15-4, 9-1 at home. Spurs right now 3-16. It's going to be loss number 15. So Spurs fans, I have a question for you. At what point do we hold Pop in the front office accountable? In Pop, we trust. And I know that this is something that I've been banging the drum on for about 3 years, and a lot of people think it's old, but fact of the matter is that when does this become too much? After all the celebration, the pomp and circumstance of the NBA draft, and I remember being at the Rue Pub the night that the Spurs won the lottery, 14% chance, and seeing everybody all excited and pumped up, and you know, we're back, baby. You know, we're going to have a winning record, or we're going to at least improve on that 22-win season from last year. What are the odds that the Spurs actually hit 22 wins this year? Because if you take a look at it right now, Spurs right now with a 3-16 record, right? 3-16 record. That's a winning percentage of .157. You multiply that by 82 games. The Spurs are on pace to win 13 fucking games. 13. Do I think the Spurs will only win 13? No. I think the Spurs will win a little bit more than that. But my question is this going to be the worst season in Spurs history? Because if I'm not mistaken, that is 21-61, I think is the worst the Spurs have ever done. If I'm not mistaken. This is going to be the worst team in Spurs history. And who's at fault for that? Don't you think that maybe Brian Wright and Greg Popovich and R.C. Buford might share the responsibility for that? Who else's fault is it? I don't know. It's starting to piss me off. I don't know if I want to get into Spurs talk right now. If you go to like StubHub or SeatGeek or you go to Ticketmaster try to find tickets to the Spurs, you're going to find right now that you can get tickets with fees for $15. $15. Get seats. These were seats going for $125, $150 a pop 6 weeks ago. And the Spurs right now are on a 14-game losing streak, poised to be 15. To me, it looks like it's going to get to be 20. If the Spurs don't beat the Bulls, it's going to get to 20 because the Spurs have back-to-back games against the Lakers. They've got the Pelicans. They've got Giannis and the Bucks. This is going to be ugly. And if the Spurs are 3-14 now and end up being 3-20, 3-19, at what point do we look at Pop and think, you know what, maybe you should step aside? At what point do they look at Brian Wright and think to themselves, you know what, maybe you should step aside too? When is enough, Spurs fans? I mean, I know Pop has 5 championship rings, and at some point people are saying, well, Jimenez just, he deserves the right to kind of go out on his own terms. I'm not saying fire the guy. I'm just saying move him into the front office. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying get a cardboard box and pack up his shit. I'm not saying that. I'm saying transition him into something different within the organization because I'd want him to be part of the organization. I don't want him out in the cold and not having a job. That's not what I want. But I'm taking a look at it right now. The Spurs right now, 14-game losing streak. This gets to 15. This gets to 20. Who actually gets to keep their job when that happens? If you are the worst team in the NBA, coming off of one of the worst records of all of your franchise's history, and you're in year 5 of 5 consecutive losing seasons with no foreseeable way out, who gets to keep their job? How is this possible? Pop jumped the shark a couple of weeks ago when he grabbed the microphone and told Spurs fans to quit booing Kawhi Leonard. The next boos that we're going to hear are going to be on this team. And they're going to be directed at Pop. It's going to happen. Pop's going to become the villain of this whole thing. He's not turning this team around. He's not. Give me proof that he's ever done a rebuild, because it's never happened. Hasn't happened once. What's to say that this is going to happen? And all these people who's just tagging me on Twitter saying, oh, well, look at him. He's doing one-on-one training with Victor Wembanyama. Well, that's his job. Doesn't mean it's working. Of course he's training him. That's his job. But is it working? Spurs, 12.5-point favorites to lose tonight. 12.5-point underdogs, I guess you could say, to lose tonight to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I miss Joe Garcia. Joe Garcia should be back after Christmas when it comes to this show. And that makes the show a lot more dynamic when we're able to bring in Jeff Garcia from Locked On Spurs. We're able to bring in Carolina Teague or Mike Taylor or whoever it might be and have that dynamic of me going back with Joe. But it's just one of those things that I'm waiting for. I'm still trying to do this show. Drew Show reaches out and says, San Antonio should lose everything because they believed in a fraud. Wemby, the franchise, everything. San Antonio isn't a legit sports town. I don't think it's the fans' fault, though. I don't think that it is. I think what it is that the Spurs know that they're the only show in town, aside from UTSA football. And I know we have San Antonio FC, we've got the Missions, we've got UIW football and Trinity football. I get that. But like the big dog in San Antonio is the San Antonio Spurs, and they know it. And because of that, they have run this particular franchise as though that they cannot be held accountable. And they're not held accountable. They're not held accountable by local media. They're not held accountable by anybody, by fans, not held accountable. None of it. None of it. Because the Spurs are the only game in town. And it was okay for many years to do this because the Spurs were winning titles. And before they were winning titles, if you remember from 1989 all the way to 1999, the Spurs were winning 50 games. So because they were winning 50 games, we let it slide. And then they started winning titles, so we let it slide. And right now, when the Spurs have lost 5 seasons in a row, and even despite winning the NBA lottery and getting this prized prospect in Victor Wembanyama, it's getting to the point where, no, the old way can't exist anymore. You need to hold them accountable. And Pop isn't being held accountable. He's been with this team for 28 seasons. You're not going to hold him accountable anymore. The only way that you're going to hold him accountable is by booing his ass when you're at the Frost Bank Center. That's the only way that you're going to hold him accountable. They're not going to talk to the media. The media is not going to hold him accountable because the media is afraid of losing their credentials, whether it be a TV station, a radio station, or whatever the case may be. Because, again, the Spurs talk a big game about, individual rights and whatnot. But when it comes to the media, they tell the media to go screw themselves. And again, you can do that when you're winning. Jerry Jones said many, many years ago that winners have winners' rules. But the Spurs aren't winners. So they can't play by those old rules anymore. And at some point, the Spurs fans are going to get pissed off. David Atwater saying Zach LaVine wants to be a Spur. Want to bet Brian Wright hasn't reached out. Takes 2 to tangle. Takes 2 to tango. And maybe Brian Wright is reaching out. Maybe the other GMs, maybe the other franchises don't want to do anything with the Spurs. I don't know. Maybe free agents don't want to play in San Antonio for a variety of different reasons. Small market, could be because they don't want to play for Pop, could be because of a lot of different things. But you would think having a Victor Wembanyama would be an attraction for players to come over, but as of yet has not happened. As of yet has not happened. Tim Gonzalez says it's the front office fault for not signing veteran players to build around Wemby. How did you not build around Wemby in year 1? Especially with all that cap space that was there. You didn't build around Wemby in year 1. You punted. You just said, we're going to see what we got. You're going to see what we got. Famous last words of a fool right there. Let's see what we got. I have gotten frustrated with this, and I am a big Spurs fan, and it's so illogical that you see on Twitter where people just come at me or come at Spurs fans who say that they're upset and frustrated with Greg Popovich and frustrated with Brian Wright, and they say you're a fake fan. No, I'm a legit fan. I was there during the Mike Mitchell, Alvin Robertson, Gene Banks days. I was there when the Spurs played at the Hemisphere Arena. I was there when they played at the Alamo Dome, and I've been for every single ride. This is not my Sancha team. This is my ride or die team, and it's so frustrating to watch this team just lose game after game after game. And don't give me this shit about, oh well, they're playing better in those losses. I mean, let's take some optimism from them, and let's look at Sohan doing better from 3, and let's take some optimism. No, I take no optimism from it. A loss is a loss is a loss. And why are they losing? It's because they don't have the talent needed to win. Why are they losing? It's because they didn't build around Wemby. Why are they losing? It's because it starts with a coach, doesn't it? It starts with a coach. That's what it is. That's what it is. Again, we are on YouTube right now. You can leave a comment or two. We'd be more than happy to read them. Drew reaches out and says the Spurs are Jerry's side piece. They aren't even the big dog in town. Lose everything. That's an interesting talking point right now because I think all things being considered, the Spurs and the Cowboys, most sports fans in San Antonio are one or the other, if not both. Okay. The biggest common denominator of Cowboy fans in San Antonio are also Spurs fans. But the fact of the matter is that the Cowboys are winning. They have a winning record. And it's easier to follow a team that's winning. It's harder to follow a team and support a team when they're losing. And it's one of those things where who wants to spend their hard-earned money on a team that doesn't have a plan? That's my problem right now. What plan is there? And it's hard to hold this team accountable when no one has ever held them accountable before. And this all should have ended a while back. And they say that the worst thing to do in the NBA is to be a 41-41 team. It's a race to the bottom or a race to the top. I get that. But how long are we going to be at the bottom? Because Victor Wembanyama is not a forever Spur. The Spurs did not sign him to a 20-year deal. They signed him to a 4-year deal. That's how rookie contracts work. There is a legit chance that this dude's going to be 23 years old and a free agent and playing for the Lakers or playing for Miami or playing for the Knicks or playing for the Bulls or playing for a big-time team in a big-time city. And the idea that the Spurs decided that they were just going to piss away his rookie season to see who they got. Who is the fucking priority on this team? It's Victor Wembanyama. That is the priority of this team. And instead, actions speak louder than words. The priority of this team this year has been Jeremy Sohan. The whole experiment of him at point forward, point guard, and although he has done better, shooting three-pointers at a higher clip than I ever thought he ever would, why was that the priority this year? Victor Wembanyama, the most prized prospect in 20 years, is on this team, and he was not the priority. The priority was starting Sohan at point guard. Someone explain this to me like I'm a fifth grader, because I don't get it. The priority should have been, holy shit, we got Wemby. Let's build around this fucker. And instead, no, they didn't do it. They didn't do it. I blame Pop. I blame R.C. Buford. I blame Brian Wright. It's fucking ridiculous, dude. Fucking ridiculous. All right, well, now that my blood pressure's up, Drew reaches out and says, Pop had DeRozan, had DeJounte, had Aldridge. Says, give me Ime or Spoelstra, Tom Thibodeau for that team. Those years would be competing for conference finals. Possibly, dude. I mean, it happens to all good coaches. Look at Bill Belichick right now. I mean, the Bills suck. I mean, the Patriots suck right now. It's just so frustrating. It's frustrating to see the priorities. And you can tell someone's priorities by the actions by which they take. And the actions that the Spurs took this year was not about building around Victor Wembanyama. It was around experimenting with Jeremy Sohan. And although Sohan's done better this year than I thought he ever would, why was that the priority? Why wasn't the priority to bring talent around Victor Wembanyama? Why was the priority to come out there and say, let's just see what we got? Just see what we got. Let's experiment. Let's tinker with these lineups. And what we have seen is that whole experiment has been a failure. They've lost 14 in a row. It's going to be 15. And if the Spurs don't beat the Bulls, it's going to be 20. And at what point do we tell the front office? At what point do fans just do a collective boo? Not at Kawhi Leonard, but do that collective boo at Pop in the front office. Because I don't think that Spurs fans are going to be able to take it when it gets to 20 losses in a row. And if the Spurs have the worst season in franchise history, the same year that they got Victor Wembanyama, it'd be the worst thing that I've ever experienced as a Spurs fan. Lots of comments coming in. I like that Drew says that the Pats are the top-rated defense because even when they lose, they play well defensively. At least they got one side of the ball right? I see that. All right, let's get to the pop culture a little bit, man. We'll bounce around a little bit. Just reach out to me right now on our YouTube stream. I'd be more than happy to read some of these comments out here. Jacob says we might see Santa before the Spurs win again. Chris Gonzalez reaches out and steals my thunder a little bit. Did you hear about Taylor Swift? Damn straight I heard about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift right now is named Time Magazine's 2023 Person of the Year. Photo of the magazine cover on my Twitter account, which, by the way, you can reach out to me at MJ Acquired Taste. Yeah. Was there any other person that it could have been? Of course, Taylor Swift is the Person of the Year. I think this is the most obvious choice. I think it's the correct choice. And it's not because I'm a Swiftie or a Taylor Swift fan. It's just what she's been able to accomplish this year has been remarkable. There is a comedian that I like named Andrew Schultz. He's a great comedian if you ever follow him on YouTube or follow him on TikTok. And one of the things that he mentions a while back was that he went to a Taylor Swift concert and that he has been a hater and has talked trash about her for so long that he went to the concert and realized it was the best show he'd ever been to. And a lot of people are asking the question, put her on the pantheon of the greatest musicians of all time. And it's hard for some people to believe that she's actually a legend, not just a pop star, but she's a legend probably on the same stratosphere as Michael Jackson, as Prince. She is up there. And this was the year where people kind of came out of the woodwork and finally confessed to the fact that they were fans of her. And you take a look right now, her tour is coming back to the United States. Right now, she's touring with Paramore out in Europe and in South America. They're coming back to the United States. And I was looking at tickets in New Orleans, $1,500 a pop right now still to go watch her perform. And I think I'm going to take my daughter out there. I have to. It's the Super Bowl of concerts. It really is. It really is. And Taylor Swift, though, there are colleges right now. There are colleges right now that are teaching classes about her and her artistry and her poetry, which are her lyrics. I find that to be pretty amazing. So yes, I did hear about that. I did also see on the Kelly Clarkson show the other day, Mario Lopez was on and was talking about how he's 50 years old now, and people don't believe that he's 50 because he still looks like AC Slater from Saved by the Bell back in the 90s. Chris Gonzalez reaches out and says, Elvis, Michael Jackson, Taylor Swift, and who else? That's the stratosphere. That is the stratosphere. And it's beyond the fact that Taylor Swift goes out there and not only is it, dude, her show is 3.5 hours long, 44 songs. 3.5 hours long. Packs stadiums of 90,000 people and has 15,000 people standing outside just to listen from the outside. And it's worldwide. It's absolutely insane. On top of that, on a political type of thing, she sends out a link to go register to vote, not telling you who to vote for, but to register to vote, and it shuts down the sites because so much traffic went because Taylor Swift said go register to vote, to the point where there are political commentators. Sean Hannity on Fox News Channel recently came out and said that he is asking people from his own station to not disrespect Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift can actually tell her legion of fans to go vote against the Republican Party if she wanted to. And Sean Hannity is afraid of Taylor Swift. I find that to be funny. She is a pop star, but she's also a legend when it comes to it all. It's crazy. Getting a lot of comments coming in right now. I hate to say it, but people, this is Mike Jimenez, not Jeff Garcia, man. I have nothing to say about comic books. I have nothing to say about it. Okay, so Drew reaches out and says, just like those classic cowboy movies from the past, every single movie is absolutely terrible now. Going on to the comic book era of movies, is there a point of no return when it comes to this Marvel MC? When it comes to these DC comic type things, I kind of feel like it was like that with Star Wars as well, where people just got tired of it. I mean, is there a point where it's just like, is it enough? I mean, have we seen enough of? I mean, you have all these characters from Iron Man to Thor and all that stuff. I mean, is it too much at some point? I mean, it's every freaking year, and there's nothing. There is nothing original about what we see at the movie theaters right now. There's very little of it. It's just regurgitated movies. It's all superhero. It's all of that, and there's nothing that's genuine anymore when it comes to it. The movie that won the all the Oscars last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once. At least I'll give it credit for trying to be different. I hated the movie, but at least it was trying to be different. It's just different. Let's get back to sports. Morvey says, careful what you wish for. Dak wins MVP and the Cowboys are done. Jerry will need to dish out more money for Dak, CD, and Parsons. Okay, let's talk about this for a little bit. So what happened over the past couple of weeks? Jerry Jones made amends with Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy Johnson's going to be inducted into the Ring of Honor later on this month or by the end of the season. Is it possible that that was the curse that was preventing the Cowboys from winning titles, or the curse that prevented the Cowboys from advancing? The Jimmy Johnson curse, that maybe it was because of that rift between those two? Because I believe that the karma, if we're going to use a Taylor Swift term, the karma's there for the Cowboys. I really do think that. And does Dak deserve to win MVP? Not right now, man. I know he's the favorite right now, and he has a really good touchdown to interception ratio, and I get all of that stuff. But my problem with Dak Prescott is who has he beaten? The best team that he has beaten this year is last week's victory against the Seahawks, and they're 500. Who has Dak beaten? We're going to see Dak go up against the Eagles this weekend. We're going to see him go up against the Lions and the Bills and the Dolphins. If he has good games there and the Cowboys win 3 of those 4, then yes, crown him as MVP. But if he goes 1-3 or 2-2 against those teams, no, then he's not the MVP. Jalen Hurts may have gotten his ass handed to him by the Niners last week, but dude, during that 6-week stretch, they played Buffalo, they played Miami, they played Kansas City, they played San Francisco, they played Dallas, they played a 6-week stretch where they won game after game after game after game, and they finally lost to the Niners. The Niners finally, rocking and rolling right now after losing 3 in a row earlier this year. It's going to be fun in the playoffs because right now, if you take a look at the standings and what's going on in the NFL right now, you could have a 4-way tie at the end of this weekend. And I would go off to say that it's more likely than not, we're going to have 4 teams tied with the best record in the NFL right now in the NFC when it comes to the Cowboys, the Eagles, when it comes to the Lions, and when it comes to the Niners. They'll all more than likely have the same record by the end of this week. They'll all be 10-3. But beyond that, the Rams are looking feisty. That's a team right now that keep an eye on. They've won 3 in a row. They're a little feisty. I mean, they're getting healthy. I never thought I would say that about them. But they're looking pretty good. And then if you look at the AFC right now, it's going to be a dogfight because you've got 11 teams in contention for playoff berths. And if you look at the wild card, Pittsburgh, the 5 seed, all the way down to Buffalo, the 11 seed, only 1 game separates 5 through 11, which includes Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indy, Houston Texans, Denver Broncos, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Buffalo Bills. Unreal. Drew reaches out and says it's almost as though the NFL office makes the Cowboys schedule soft at this time of the year. um, the Cowboys schedule kind of is what it is. We knew this from the get-go that this was going to be an easy schedule for them to start out. But when you take a look at this team right now, they play similar teams because the way the NFL works is you play your division, each team in your division twice, and then everybody in your division plays an opposite division once. So that's why the Cowboys and the Eagles are playing Buffalo and Miami, and they're playing the Patriots, they're playing the Jets. It's because that's just the division that they drew this year. The question becomes, well, are those games at home or on the road? The Cowboys were fortunate to pull a lot of games at home that would have been difficult on the road. The Cowboys, for some reason, don't play well on grass, and that might be their undoing. Because if they have to go play back-to-back games against the Eagles and Niners to make the Super Bowl, it ain't going to happen. Not only because those other teams are good, because the Cowboys play like trash on grass anyway. So that's going to be it. If you're watching this on the YouTube stream, you're seeing my dog attacking me right now. Cody, you okay? You okay, Cody? You want to say hi to the people? There's Cody. That's Cody. And yes, I'm a good dog owner. Okay. No matter what anybody says on Twitter, I actually am a pretty good dog owner. I've got 3 dogs over here right now. I've got my Shih Tzu, my Maltese Shih Tzu over here. I've got Cody, my Golden Retriever, and I've got Duncan, who is my Husky mix that's over here. So having a good time working from home. I miss the studio hanging out with Joe Garcia. I miss it so much. It's difficult doing a podcast by yourself for an hour, kind of on your own. Chris Bennett is asking the question, was Cody inside when it rained? Most recently, yes, but not that one time I posted that photo. My goodness, man. I remember Jason Minix over at San Antonio Sports Star when I was working over there. He was like, dude, I can't believe you posted that photo. And then Rob Thompson reached out to me and was like, Jimenez, did you just go on air and say the dogs were animals? I just said, they'll be fine. It's raining outside, but they're animals and they'll be okay. He goes, did you call them animals? Yeah, because that's what dogs and cats are. They're animals. They're supposed to be outside. Okay, but we love them enough to keep them inside. I would say that my dogs right now, the Maltese Shih Tzu mix, is inside 95% of the time. And I would say that my Husky and Golden Retriever are inside probably 50% of the time, outside 50% of the time. But when they're outside, man, they tear up the yard from time to time. Chris Bettis reaches out and says, laughing my ass off. That bit was hilarious. And it wasn't a bit, man. I was just saying what I was thinking, man. That's so funny. Bits are conversation pieces that get you going. I don't know if I talked about this on Monday, but I did tweet this the other day. This is Christmas time. By the way, Christmas time. I have yet to hear Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You song. Has that song been done away with? I haven't heard it once. It is December 6th, and I have yet to hear it one time. But you hear a lot of songs, kind of the same songs every year. You hear Do They Know It's Christmas Time at All, which was, I believe, Live Aid. You hear Last Christmas by Wham. Love that song, by the way. But then you also hear We Are the World a lot because that came out around Christmas time back in 1984. And it came out, 85 rather. And that song comes out every once in a while. And I heard this song the other day in the music video. And as I was watching it, I was like, man, look at all of these stars from way back when who got together to sing this song. It starts off with Lionel Richie. And then you see Diana Ross and you see Kenny Rogers and all of these superstars from back in the day, Steve Perry, Daryl Hall. You have all of these celebrities that it could never be recreated. And Michael Jackson singing the chorus and Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder and all of that. But there's one singer that didn't bring it. That was Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson missed his cue because Gladys Knight was singing right before him, and they were supposed to kind of like come in together at one point. And I don't know if he was paying attention. I don't know if he was high or what, but he missed his cue. And every time I hear We Are the World, I'm just fascinated by the fact that Willie Nelson was like a second behind where he should have been. But Huey Lewis did a fantastic job. Bruce Springsteen just went off on We Are the World. And then Ray Charles just turning the church level up to 10 on that song. Very, very cool, man. Very, very cool. Chris Gonzalez asking the question, speaking of Christmas songs, did you hear who got the #1 spot on the Billboard charts? I have no idea. I'm going to look that up real quick. I am a big fan of the Billboard charts. I do read that website pretty frequently. Top 100 right now on the Billboard charts. Let's see right now. Rocking Around the Christmas Tree by Brenda Lee. How'd that happen? How did that happen? Number 2, All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. It's hard to believe that Mariah Carey, with her phenomenal career, that All I Want for Christmas Is You is her greatest hit of all time. Who would have thought? Jack Harlow's Lovin' on Me is 3. Jingle Ball Rock is 4. Last Christmas by Wham is 5. Taylor Swift, Cruel Summer at number 7. A lot of Christmas music here. That's interesting. I haven't heard a lot of anything. Chris Gonzalez is down and says, Huey Lewis did a good job, not according to Michael Jackson. Have you seen the video of him and Huey? I have not. Is that the making of We Are the World? I got to look at that, man. I've seen the making of We Are the World, but it's been a while. But it's a great song. It really is. And I kind of made fun of the fact on Twitter that I still don't know what the hell Cyndi Lauper is saying, but she does her part. She took it up a level. I don't know if it was a good level or not, but she took it up to someplace. Chris Bettis reaches down and says he was hearing Mariah the first day of November. I have yet to hear it. And here's the thing. Mariah Carey was my celebrity crush from like 1993 to 97. From like Vision of Love all the way through Honey. She was my celebrity crush. And I had all of her CDs back in the day. It would piss off my friends when we'd get in the car and they'd want to hear, Pac, and they'd want to hear, Snoop and Dre and all that stuff. And I'm over here going, okay, but let's hear Emotions first. Okay, let's hear Emotions first. Not that I wasn't into Snoop, because I was. Doggy Style album was great and all that stuff, and The Chronic and all that was great. But, you got to vary it up. Got to do a little bit more than just that. That's the thing about music. Let me ask you guys about that. I have a lot of friends, and I'm looking at you, Jason Minix, because you're one of my good friends from San Antonio Sports Star. Having just one genre of music to listen to is so boring, man. I know so many people who only listen to hard rock music. That's it. I know so many people who only listen to 90s pop, who only listen to George Strait, who only listen to whatever. And I've never understood the type of person who would only like one genre of music. That's like only liking one genre of a movie. How do you do that? I don't get it. Lots of comments reaching out to us. Tim Gonzalez reaching out and saying that UTSA. Drew Show real fast. Tommy Mottola traded in Mariah Carey for Thalia. What a life. Thalia has held up better. Tommy is man of the decade. Thalia was hot, dude. She had a what's it called? A novella back in the day called Maria del Barrio that my friends and I used to watch. Didn't understand much of what they were saying, but she was hot. David Atwater says, my father-in-law loves rock. Different types of rock out there, man. Different types of rock. Tim Gonzalez reaching out with a sports take saying one of the UTSA players has entered in the transfer portal. Yeah, that was the young man who won Defensive Player of the Year for the conference there. UTSA is going to be in trouble when it comes to the transfer portal because it's one of those things where you have to understand that these players might be using UTSA as a stepping stone. I believe he's talking about Trey Moore, who got added to the transfer portal. UTSA has done a phenomenal job bringing up this program over the last decade and going from conference to conference, now in the American Athletic Conference. We've done a fantastic job. But for all intents and purposes, we're AAA college football. That's what we are. Right now, it used to be the Power Five, but now you've got the Big Two. You've got the Big Ten, and you've got the SEC starting next year. Below that, you've got the Big 12, or what's the new Big 12, and you've got the ACC. Below that, you've got the Group of Five. You've got the AAC, you've got the Sun Belt, you've got the Conference USAs of the world and whatnot. We did move up, but the landscape has changed. And for all intents and purposes, we are AAA football right now. So that means that if we have really good players, they're going to want to go play for an Auburn or an LSU or an Alabama. We are their farm club along with their own personal recruiting. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. I mean, Zachary Franklin may not have worked for him, but for this guy, it might. So it's interesting, but UTSA football should be proud of this guy because it shows a lot of players out there that maybe even if we are the stepping stone, we're worth being there for the first 2 or 3 seasons. Why not? Why not? Look at the stepping stone that Joe Burrow had. Joe Burrow was at Ohio State for so long. He got a degree at Ohio State and was a graduate transfer over to LSU. Ended up winning a national title over there. I mean, that's going from blue blood to blue blood, if you will, but still, the transfer portal is there for a reason. And I'm glad to see the players make money. Real fast before I let you guys go, I am excited to let you guys know that my refereeing has done well this year, and I've been calling basketball games since the early 2000s. But in that 20-year span, I called games maybe 12 of those years. I would officiate for 2 years, take a year off, officiate for a couple of years, take a year off. And I hadn't officiated in about 3 years, and they called me out and they said, "Hey, why don't you come back over here? You have experience doing 3-man officiating for varsity." But my varsity games were usually 2A, 3A, or 4A. And they brought me back, and I thought, okay, they'll just have me do freshman and JV. And no, they've been having me do more and more varsity games. I did one last night over at Alamo Heights, and now I'm looking at my schedule because they started assigning new games, and now I have 5 and 6A matchups. Did a 5A varsity game yesterday. Today I am doing a 6A varsity girls basketball game today. It's either 5 or 6A. And then I have big games at the Alamo Convocation Center for an SAISD matchup. I have games over at what used to be called the Blossom Athletic Conference. I think it's called Littleton Gym for an NEISD 6A game. And then I've got games over at Paul Taylor Fieldhouse for a 5A matchup. So it's nice to see that I'll be actually doing these games in the big arenas out there. So I'm super excited about that. I'll post my schedule if you want to come cheer or if you want to come boo me or heckle me or whatever the case may be. I don't mind at all. Chris Gonzalez. I don't mind UTSA being the Pete Davidson of college football. I like that. I like that. Just we're not going to be your married material, but maybe you'll be willing to date us. Morvy's saying UTSA will be a victim of their own success. And it's going to be a sad day when Jeff Traylor leaves. It's going to happen. May not happen this season, but it's going to be a sad day because all that success, someone's going to want him. Not only are we the stepping stone or launching pad for players, but also for coaches. Because if you take a look at Oregon's offensive coordinator this year, came from UTSA. This is not a bad thing to be a stepping stone. When I say that UTSA is a stepping stone, I'm not saying that in a bad way or in a tongue-in-cheek way. No, it's actually a good thing because we're not going to be part of the SEC. We're not going to be part of the Big 12 anytime soon. Maybe one day. We're just not there yet. But I think it'll happen one day that we'll move on up again. But there'll have to be some other types of alignments going on. And UTSA, kind of like a surfboard, needs to get on that wave at that point. Now, Drew reaches out and says UTSA of the 2020 is the UTEP of the late 80s and early 90s. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I know UTEP had its heyday, and back in the day, SMU was a big deal before the death penalty. I mean, when they had Eric Dickerson and whatnot. The difference is that UTSA has a very big student population. It's becoming less and less of a commuter school and more of a destination school. Don't get me wrong; it'll have its commuter roots because San Antonio is such a big city. Um, but I think the trajectory is still going in the right direction, still going in a positive direction. So I'm optimistic about the future of UTSA football, but that needs to bleed down onto other things because that convocation center that they have over there for college basketball is tragically bad. That is an awful, awful arena they have over there, and more attention needs to be placed to the athletic department over there. More money needs to be added to it, and that's beyond the alumni. That is also local businesses being part of that whole thing because UTSA sports is more than just football. UTSA has a very good baseball team. UTSA has a very good softball team, and there's a lot of things worth cheering for out on that campus. We got to think of it more of it just being a football team. It has to be more of an athletic, an overall UTSA athletic type of deal. Um, but I still think they'll be on the right track for things. Hope everyone has a fantastic day. I hope that Joe is back with me on Friday. That'd be great. But if not, it'll be just me. But hopefully Joe comes back and we'll have guests out there, whether it be Jeff Garcia or whether it be Carolina Teague or somebody like that. But hope everyone has a great day today and stay safe, stay warm. Cold front's coming in this weekend. Stay warm. Talk to you guys soon.